We're in Feb, the month of love, and that song by Celine Dion on the album The Color of My Love that was released in 1993, and that is on the 8th of November. Celine Dion, when talk of good music, some of the ladies that specialize when it comes to passion, songs of love. She's one of the artists that I really enjoy listening to.
Something also probably unique about her is when she did the soundtrack for Titanic. Remember that song? My Heart Will Go On. It is one number that actually, it's one of the most selling. I think it falls third after Thriller. Then you had a certain album, I think, for Phil Collins. Then you have Celine Dion's. That particular song did make Billboard mention. Basically, it had the most pompous, and the same is attributed to Titanic. You remember that movie, Robert? Yeah. You watched Titanic?
Titanic, definitely I did.
So, Titanic. You know, because of that song, it was the soundtrack for the movie, and it had clips from the movie, right? Yeah. So it was a big song because they would play it like on every show that you'd watch, every musical show. So you pretty much get an idea of what Titanic is about. So my dad goes to UK, I remember. He comes back with an actual movie. Now, you know those days, movies were original copies. So he comes back with the movie, and then with a 5 CD changer. So we plug it in, we start watching family night movie. And then he used to have this trick where he does, chechi dako. Kati ya daddy, gune gera kola wati, no wati, then kete kola wati, tedede. Chechi dakao. Tedede. By the time by the third chechi dakao, my dad bounced us to bed. So he sent us to bed, and they watched the movie, and we never watched the movie. But of course, as children, you wait for him to go to work, and then you sit down and watch the movie. Yeah, you make good for it.
Of course, there are very memorable scenes in that particular movie. Very touching. By then, you know your kids and you're crying when the guy was on the boat, dying, whistling, then Jack, don't die.
Then free, he freezes. And then she survives. Somehow she survives.
Anyway.
But the other touching scene is when the ship is actually tilting towards, you know, and that orchestra they were still playing. They played this music until.
One of the things in Titanic is that two classes of people, the rich, the poor, but also not even God could sink the great Titanic. But eventually, it sank. Not even God. The people that made the Titanic, I was reading about that, the entire story. They said that they were told the iceberg, you would collide. They said, no, not even God can sink the great Titanic.
But actually, if you read about the Titanic, it's very beautiful, the story, even how it was made and the purpose it was meant for. But of course, when you read about it, they say it had a lot of evil and all the things that used to happen on it. But mostly the painful of the same was
that it was a party ship. What did you expect? It was just to give people a C version of party life. So is that evil?
Anyway, something, talking about party life and all these things, Robert calls February a month of love. I just wonder, I've never gotten well with that, honestly. I think February is a month of a lot of disappointments than love, I think.
Okay, but again, it's Felix's opinion. We also have to note that. But good morning, Uganda. Thank you so much for being with us. Wednesday's edition, 3rd February 2021. Remember, you can stream with us on our YouTube channel, which is UBC Television Uganda, and get to know what is latest as far as current affairs is concerned. Speaking of current affairs, the story that you did, Felix, in Kasese.
Oh yes, Hima Road. There's been a terrible accident, and painfully or sadly, at least over 30 people are confirmed to be dead. 5 are still nursing wounds in hospitals. That is in Kilembe Hospital there. And the survivors so far, but of course Red Cross is on ground trying to, and the Uganda police and the military. That was 5 hours ago. It happened in the night. It's sad that we're looking at about 5 cars that were involved in this accident. So much more of that story we'll be getting as, of course, we go into the day. We'll be giving you more details of these particular stories. But some of you have colleagues, friends who are traveling within those vicinities. Please endeavor to find out. It's sad. It's another cloud of darkness That is something we don't expect as we have been ushered into a year. It's painful, but we do pray for the souls of those who have succumbed to death.
Well, may their souls rest in peace. Yeah.
Eternal peace. Also, Priscilla, it is a moment that someone should at least take some hallelujah, jinga tea, because talk about accidents, lives are lost, but we still have also a pandemic, that is COVID-19, where it is very important for you not only to observe the standard operating procedures, but also to ensure you boost your immune system. And one of the drinks are the hallelujah products, because they contain some of very important ingredients in the fight against COVID-19. We have, that is ginger, potable water, sucralose, rosemary powder, and it is an acidity regulator. So not everything that you consume is important. That is why you see, my daughter, this is not important for me, but take drinks that will boost your immune system and help you fight. Priscilla every morning has a concoction she takes, and have you already done that?
Yes, I usually get half a cup of hot water, then I pour in either tamarind or the ginger tea drink, and then I'm able to drink it. So that gives me one warmth for my body, because I've been sleeping, so most of my internal organs are rested. So they need to be re-energized, woken up, and what way to wake them up, then give them something warm. The same. Try it out this morning and you will let me know.
It will help you also take a lot of water, because I see our sister here of late taking a lot of water.
True that.
I take a lot of water. I think the mixture there encourages it's more tasty for you to take more. But of course yesterday something happened, that is many people have been pressuring government to reopen schools. So yesterday at the media center, the government spokesperson Ofono Pondo communicated to the media plans by government to reopen schools, but this is going to be in a gradual process. We shall have semi-candidates first, then after examinations are done, the finalists, then we shall have the rest report back to school. But for primary, that is nursery, those, according to the statement, the communication, they will not go to school because they cannot manage to handle the standard operating procedures, but also these pre-primary schools are day schools, and there's so much where teachers and the parents, they come from home, yet they're very vulnerable because they're infants. So that is of late. And now we want to look at the impact that is of COVID-19 on the education sector. Just to take you back, you must remember it was on the 18th of March last year when His Excellency addressed the nation regarding COVID-19. And one of the measures that he put in place was to have the 15 million school-going return home, and that was for a period of until it was in October 15th when they opened schools for finalists or candidates, and that is what we've been looking at throughout, and then now we expect to have the semi-candidates back. Felix, education is very vital, and we know of course now that students, school-goers have been home for quite a long time. I want to look at some of the impacts there. First, beginning, we know education is cross-cutting social, but let's first look at the students themselves, the school-goers themselves, the impact of this long stay, that some we even don't know when they would go back to school.
Well, but of course, speaking about school and education, amidst COVID-19, you do remember how long it has been since we've been having children out of, or children, people, and of course adults out of
education. From 20th of March last year.
You do take notice of the same, that it is coming to almost a year. Now, the effect, if you want to talk about the effects of this particular time, you will also take into cognizance those various aspects. One, look at the student themselves. Of course, it has a couple of, we can look at it in the tripartite. We can look at the students, let's look at the parents, as major stakeholders, and the schools. Now, for us, my focus, I'll put it on students. Now, you and me know that education has a use, if I may use that language. It has a purpose. Yeah. There's a reason why we wake up to look for money to take our toddlers to school, or even to go to school ourselves, some of us who are still interested. There's a reason. Now, in the absence of education, that purpose is defeated. What am I saying? Education is not fashion. It's not like, it's not a routine. But now is a time for us to take true cognizance of purpose of education. One, you're having kids out of school for a year. What is the effect in terms of what's the purpose? Let's look at, if you want to look at it informally or formally, you have people who should be professionals. At that point, that means we may have challenges. If you're looking at, or you're expecting probably to have 1,000 doctors annually, you may end up having 500 because of what the pandemic has come with. If you're looking at having maybe 1,000 lawyers, you may have 500. There's going to be a cut. That's one. In aspect of professionalism, or what we call the formal center of education, yes, or human, actually she puts it better, human resource. We're going to have a great downsizing or downfall in terms of human resource. That is on the formal level. Now, when you come also at describing education as a tool of learning, to educate, let's look at learning. You have people who have not learned in 1 year. You get it? Because when people go to school, they learn. They are educated. We have people who have not been educated for 1 full year. Do you know the danger of that? It's enormous. Now, it means that we have a knowledge gap that needs to be filled for 1 year. That's a threat. Now, let's look at issues of discipline. You and me know that children spend at least 3/4 of their time in schools. Okay, let's talk about nurturing. Let's talk about parenting. Talk about societies. It means that people who would be today finishing or being promoted to another year, or who are being promoted, or are going to do in labor, whatever, today some of them are in labor wards. Some of them have died.
Some of them are in stone quarries.
Some of them, life has changed.
Many will never go back.
That's what I'm saying. Now, it comes back to what I first said, the professionalism. That why, if you expect to have 1,000 doctors, you may end up with 500. Now, these are things that we must think of painfully and sensibly, that they must cause effect and know how to remedy. You see, when you talk about education as a blanket discussion, you always miss the point. Education, somero, masomero. You break it down, that's when you know the effect. That the expectation, because I understand the Ministry of Education has these statistics, that they probably expect in 5 years, Uganda will have this number of professionals in regard to procurement, industrial art or what. That now has drastically come down. Because most of the would-be these professions probably have ended up in stone quarries, as Priscilla is saying, probably are giving birth somewhere. Some of them have lost lives. We have just seen a story.
Skills where they are now...
They have been diverted in other aspects of practices. We've just seen a story here. 17-year-olds in court martial. If schools were open, honestly,
maybe they would.
Honest, not maybe, that's a matter of fact. Maybe they would be. These should be in school. Now, that's the effect. Now, these are just the two we have seen, because we are privileged to be in a media house, that you have some of them. But there are so many like them in Chitalia, in Naguru, who have been imprisoned, who have been arrested for curfew, who have been jailed for so many reasons that you may. Now, when you talk about education, again, don't talk about it as a blanket. And this is what we're also asking government. Break it down for you to understand the effect. We are faced when we don't have education up and running. Let me say this, Robert, also probably as I cook before my sister comes in. You see, in as much as we talk about education as a routine practice in Uganda, we need to be sure that people are actually learning. You see, education is the evidence that there is knowledge acquisition. Let me put it that way. When you're talking about education, there must be an element of learning. And where there is an element of learning, there must be an element of value addition. You get the point? That when you tell someone, I am in S6, it is not enough to say that you're in S6. You must match up the level of the expected criteria of someone who's in S6. So, because that's where we best to evaluate. But now, if we start evaluating, today you've been having for a full year, S4, S6 at home, P7, even university chaps are home and what? Can we have an evaluation? Have our children, are they learning? Are they in education? Because this would be a good thing. That would see, actually, we would see a tremendous change in this 1 year in communities and families because of the presence of these kids back home. If they were learning, this should also cause question to our education system, our education facilities.
So it's not only about formal education.
No, because we cannot fault them for the informal, we can't fault academic institutions for informal education. That's not really their part. If they do it, that's a plus.
But I'm talking about that parents should know that education is not only about formal education.
No, in this sense, Robert, I'm talking about causing evaluation in the informal sector. Because this is a time to evaluate whether this so-called education you are paying very expensively for is worth it. You know that in Uganda we have schools that pay up to 15 million.
Yeah.
And they are as low as
per
nursery.
term, please, not per term.
Yes, and those are as low as toddlers. So we must now have we gotten the opportunity to have a digest of value for this thing they call education in Uganda? Or is it a routine activity that as long as someone makes 4 in Uganda, kindergarten, baby, middle, top. After top, where does someone go? P1. After P1, P2, P3, P4, P5. Someone who finishes PLE, where do they go? S1. Is it something we quick to rhyme with, or there is sense? Because 1 year should give us a good evaluation of whether we have relevant, useful, formidable education versus a routine practice.
Priscilla, now let's look at the reopening, the gradual reopening. When the ministry comes out and says, okay, we shall have seniors, we shall have senior 5, senior 3, and P6. Already candidate classes have had challenges. Some schools never opened because of the numbers, so they said we cannot move on. Some teachers have already gone into other avenues. Economic impact is great. Some schools, banks have taken them over. Yeah. With this just gradual of about now, if it has been primary, you've only added 1 class. The candidates by March P7, 31st, they'll be done with their exams. Senior 4, by April, they'll be done. Oh, that. Do you think this is going to have a great impact on the education sector, this gradual opening?
Well, great impact in terms of what it could be positive, it could be negative. Okay, let's take the flight test that was for the candidate classes that we have right now. Right from P7, I wonder why top class was not considered as candidates, because they have to transition to P1. You can't go to P1 in this country without going to top class.
Priscilla, just to inform you, with the reopening, baby, nursery, top are not going to be considered, even when the rest go back as of now, because they cannot abide by the standard operating procedures. Second, we don't have them in boarding schools, so it's still hard. So for them, maybe a child that was 4 may join.
Let's come back to the flight test that was for P7, Senior 4, Senior 6, and also the finalists at university. Yes, the challenges are going to be there for COVID-19. The SOPs are going to be hard to enforce. And if they are hard to enforce in adults like us, sincerely, what more do you expect for children? In fact, it's better for schools because there's law and order in schools. The teacher tells you, if you don't, chiboko. If you don't, punishment. If you don't, you go and dig, you know. So in schools, it's even much easier to handle if the proprietors of these schools, the teachers, and the staff as a whole can take it seriously. But now, my question is, I'm thinking, so when these finalists are done in March, they're going to enter what they call vacation. Does that mean that they're going to sit for another period of, let's say, a year to be able to then transition to S1, S5, and university? What's the transition plan for the ones that are going to sit for their final examinations? Then you kick off the semi-finalist classes who will then become finalists. Please note that they had almost closed first term when the schools were closed down. So even those that have been were trying to convince themselves that they can do homeschooling, they were doing homeschooling in reference to first term, not second term notes, not third term notes, because a parent cannot do much. A parent can only guide you with what you have been given, what you can refer to in your notes. So for the last few months, about like 10 months to be exact. You've had parents trying so hard to see that they can catch up with their kid, but that has fallen to the side simply because they don't know what is in the syllabus for second term. They don't know what's in the syllabus for third term. So they cannot become the teacher of the parent. So that means that these classes are going to have to resume, and they'd have to consider resuming right from what would have been term 1, then term 2, then term 3. Question would be, are these terms going to be equally shortened the way we've seen it for the finalist candidate classes that has been done? What does that speak into the syllabus? Are they going to be treated of the syllabus that has been known to take a whole year, now being brought and narrowed down into 9 months of the year? Possibility of that. That means that the Ministry of Education is going to have to sit down and pick out what is relevant over what is not irrelevant. Again, you then break it down to looking at the education sector, relevance of the things that we have studied. The SST you studied, you know, the other history that you studied of other countries. How relevant has it been in actually adding value, as Felix put it, onto this child getting into the next class? So there are so many loopholes that are actually on this matter of subject. You also have to consider that the children who have, like the girl childs, many of them have become impregnated. What's going to be the cost on education for them and towards them? You look at also children that have had the whole challenge of coming from a low poverty line, rural areas. How are they going to transition back into school? It's going to be challenging because we have to look at the bigger picture. The economy has gone down. People's per capita has gone down. That means that they can no longer afford school fees, and yet ironically, schools reopening might also consider increment in school fees as far as returning these students is concerned. So it is a serious, cumbersome pressure that the Ministry of Education has to sit down and properly plan. So I totally understand that they can delay this process because of the so many angles that they have to look at in order to bring all this into amalgamation.
I'm sorry, I laughed at something. I just getting a glimpse of an event that did happen when I met one of the teachers from a colleague's school, and they were telling me he's comfortable doing bricklaying. The other one is is actually selling charcoal, one of the ladies. I also met another one doing border business. Now, the reason why I bring this story, and I did make a bit of fun about it, is that this is the evidence of how systems are not anchored. It is only in Uganda where someone can only teach probably SST, and that's all they can do. You get the point. That means all they can pass on to our children is simply SST. Now, COVID-19 has brought challenges that probably now we need to rethink. And this is why time and again we are applauding institutions, technical institutions. Sure. I don't know, for some reason people think that it is not fashionable.
Because they have now seen
that's the thing.
It's actually valuable.
If any of you wants to think of, honestly, and I'll tell you, I have been privileged to work with an institution that does teach, that is the YMCA. I do work there. But I know for a fact that value addition is in being able to cause substance. You see, what we trade as professionals is not our titles. People calling you Dr. Chirabo, Doctor. No, it's about the value. There are as many doctors as stars in this world. Who cares? So, if you see, the pomp is not about being a lawyer. It's about value. Do you have value? Do you have something to offer? Now, there's nothing priding in me. I have a degree, Makerere, Nkumba. It's useless.
This is where we have this is where we have the reflection on what they have called the international education, for that matter. You identify right from the own goal that Felix here likes to advocate. He's always helping his friends out, and then parents start to actually interest and nurture the child in that direction. It can be as simple as the kid is all
break cars,
you get,
so it can be a mechanic.
So they can put them, in a garage and just get to speak into their interest. Slowly but surely, Chirabo himself gets away Okay, what is this bolt? What is this spanner? What is this? This is an engine. What is the wiring around the engine? Next thing you know, Chiro, in himself, he just wants to go for
an engineer.
Engineering.
Let me just say this, Robert.
So it does speak into the education, the curriculums that we have right now. This is the time to actually...
Well, there's something I wanted to throw some light on. Priscilla hinted on. That is how the terms run. I've been looking at the statement here, and they said in order to complete the academic year and ensure progression, the semi-candidate classes, P6, Senior 3, Senior 5, should report back to school in the short term and study in shifts where necessary. Given PLE will be completed on the 31st of March and UCE on the 6th of April, there will be more space in schools when the academic year resumes. So they're looking at how they are going to carry out continuity. It is that they are going to be examined on what they are going to study. So there will be promotion to another term. So even these semi-candidates now will be able to become candidates. So there is continuity there. And that is one issue that we look at. But very importantly, that COVID-19 standard operating procedures will be a must, and they have set up a team, that is Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health, that is, in case of any uncertainties of COVID-19, they can ensure they address that. But in our Game Euro agenda, we will be still discussing this topic more with members from the non-state education institutions. We'll return shortly, and we'll be looking at what is trending in the print media.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Enjoy great value from Airtel with the all-new My Pakalast combo offers. We have customized especially for you the best deals on minutes, data, and SMS with our 3-in-1 My Pakalast combo to give you the best value as you stay in touch with friends and family. To activate My Pakalast voice combo, dial *100*2*1# to get started.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite show.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Next time on the Road to Mama's Kampala 2021.
It's a shame, I've never been to Queen Elizabeth.
Queen Sheba joins forces with fellow Ugandan comedian Salvador to explore Queen Elizabeth Park and the unforgettable Kazinga Channel.
Jerusalem.
Road to the Mama.
The duo will team up with the Ghetto Kids to host South African global sensation Master KG.
I'm excited to meet you in person.
Here we go.
Oh gosh.
Catch the Road to Mamas, hosted by Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
Buyogera nyaffe Uganda ku Radio Africa tolemwa kumwenya olw'akamwenyumwenyu akajjudde abanywanyi. Embeera y'obudde yatukolako mukwano n'obutonde obutubeezaawo ne butusobozesa buli omu okubeerawo mu ngeri ye kuba ffenna tuli banjawulo ne mu ngeri gye tukwasaganyamu emirimu gyaffe. Naye ekitugatta ne tufuuka omuntu omu bwe buwoomyo buva mu kyokunywa ekyaleeruya jingatte drink n'aleeruya tamarin drink eddekende erikumala ennyonta ate nga wejjanjaba omubiri gwo. Ekyokunywa kino kye kitegeera emibiri gyaffe kuba kya butonde 10 ku 10 womerwa ekyokunywa ekirimu omubisi gw'enkooge Alleluia Tamarind Drink ne Alleluia Ginger Tea Drink bikolebwa ba Alleluia Reflexology Healthy Solution and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Wefunira ekyokunywa kya Alleluia leero okuva ku maduuka wonna. Bakubire ku noti 393 24 15 6
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Priscilla, looking at the election calendar, today we are still having elections in this country, and these are going to be the final ones. That's the election of sub-county chairpersons and councillors, and this is going to be conducted in 135 districts. Remember, we have 146 districts, but some cities, others municipalities, so they do not qualify to, they have already done their voting at that level. For Kampala, have the road mayor, then the division mayors, and their councillors. So now, for sub-county chairpersons, commonly known as LC3s or Gombola, there it is today that they're going to be elected with their councillors there.
All right, and just reminding you of the do's and the don'ts that the Electoral Commission has put forward before, and will continue to voice even as we go through the elections today. Do walk with your mask, walk with your sanitizer if possible. Just buy a small one that you can walk with in your pocket, in your bag. But also, when you get to the polling station, there is water and soap for you to wash your hands. After that, dust them properly, dry them, and be able to cast your vote. Of course, social distancing is key, particularly for your health. So that one is a self-initiative to just make sure that you are in a space where you can actually control and also avoid COVID-19, just in case someone in the crowd has it. The other do's and don'ts that you have to consider is when you are in the, the designated area, you're not allowed to have your phone, you're not allowed to take pictures or videos for that matter. Outside the red zone, you can't do that, but within the privacy of the ballot, you are not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to take a photo of your ballot ticking, whoever you're ticking or voting for that matter. So please take note of that, because it may come back to bite you. But also, as you do that, immediately you're done, you can vacate the premises from which your polling station is, so that you can, one, avoid contracting social distancing, but also if voting is done, closes at 4 p.m, then counting will probably go on into the night. You will get the results as they do come in from the different polling stations.
And just
so
remind you, these elections are very important, because your elected leaders that are so close to you that can address and get your problems most. So most times, Ugandans look for presidential and parliamentary, but don't forget these are very vital elections for you, and please turn up in big numbers and vote for leaders in these areas. Looking at the new vision today of the 3rd day of February 2021, a big headline there will be no automatic promotion. Schools reopening scheduled. That's out, they give it to you there. Then yesterday saw the arrival of the 2nd Airbus. The new vision gives you a picture there and what is connected in the Airbus, the routes that we are going to be flying there. We have the Uganda Airlines fleet. We have now 2 Airbus, that is 330 Neo, Renzori Elgon. We have 4 Bombardiers, that is the CRJ, Canadian Regional Jet Airliners, and they give you a brief picture of what is inside there. Other African countries that fly it, Senegal, then also it will be flying the routes of Dubai, that is the Arab Emirates, Guangzhou, China, Mumbai, India, and more so regarding that. Then NRM takes all youth legislators' seats, that is the youth representatives in Parliament. The ruling party has taken all the slots. Then polling petition, Museveni assembles 20 lawyers. That is on page 6 of the new vision. COVID-19 vaccine, government to buy 18 million doses, and universities adopting online learning.
Daily Monitor, truth every single day, and on 3rd day of February they bring you Truth Continued. Cabinet reopening P6, S3, S5 classes, the green light has been given. E-government has issued strict guidelines to primary, secondary and tertiary education institutions. So if your child is in these classes, please be knowledgeable of what the decision makers are saying in regards to education. In the pictorial headline, 6th plane arrives. New wings set Uganda on motion to international trade. And you can see the beauty of our A330-800 neo plane that is finally here. Page 5 gives you government importing 18 million COVID vaccine doses. You have ministry unveiling new plan to regulate land. Who are the new 5 youth MPs? If you're interested in politics, you want to know who is who. The new 5 youth MPs are in there for you. Then there's another interesting headline. At the top of the Daily Monitor, KCCA digs up seals 220 potholes on a 1-kilometer road. And the lizard is responding and asking, the cost might be for a whole new road, which is agreeable and very, very true. In Homes, you get to look at how COVID-19 affected the mortgage market. And in other stories, of course, Bobby lawyers failed to serve Museveni.
In the New Vision still, we look at Know Your Member of Parliament. Every day they bring you members that have made it to the 11th Parliament. And we see here Florence Asimwe Akiki, woman member of Parliament, Masindi, Kenneth Kiza Nyendaho, that is Bujenje Masindi. Today in history, we look at 20 bodies exhumed from embassy land. That is, over 20 bodies were exhumed from a disputed piece of land in Nsambya, Kampala. On this day in history, part of the land was allegedly being claimed by the U.S. Embassy. The ceremony started with the slaughtering of chicken by relatives of the deceased. The chicken was then eaten by men who were employed to exhume the bodies. Also today in history, it was on the 3rd of February 2007 when Obama declared presidential ambitions in the United States. But like I always do, I remind you, please don't be part of the statistics concerning COVID-19. As we speak today, Uganda, so far we've registered 39,606 cases. Death toll stands at 325. Recoveries 14,229. One new death that was registered, and recoveries stand at new recoveries at 50. Looking at how the region is performing in terms of COVID-19, here we see Kenya death toll is 198. Then we look at that is South Sudan. They have 64 so far, and Rwanda has 198 cases. Countries worst hit in the world, still United States of America leads, India follows, Brazil, Russia and UK. Once again, perfect those drills and do not be part of these statistics.
Daily Guide is bringing you in the news daily. We get to look at Robert Chagulanyi Elias Bobby Wine. Candidate has asked the Supreme Court to annul the election victory of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Then you have the Judicial Service Commission appointing 15 chief magistrates in a bid to bridge the staffing gaps in court. From the archives, we look at customers queuing at Wobbler's branch of Centenary Rural Development Bank that has upgraded to Centenary Bank now. In Luwe District, the year was 1990. But the bank opened its operations in the year 1985. Now, speaking of years, 1962 is when we saw today in history Kabaka Yeka opposing Uganda flag colors. You had Uganda's first being in 1953 first public library there that we saw being opened by the governor of Uganda. That was Sir Andrew Cohen on March 5th, 1953. We then get to move to the sports side of the Daily Monitor. For the Daily Monitor sports, in summary, you're looking at Pirates flattered with Okia for 16 months before signing him. You get to look about the details of Okia and his signing to the Pirates, but you get to look at focusing on defense, final roster out, as we look at the FIBA Afro Basketball second round of Africa qualifiers. They do give you the fixtures for Uganda that we have. Our first game is going to be on the 18th of February against Egypt, and we play Morocco. Then we have Cape Verde, from whom we are all placed in the same group. So the Silverbacks do have some serious games to play that can get them into the actual tournament. English Premier League crucial fixture, Liverpool will be looking to continue their recent revival with a third win in the space of a week.
In the New Vision Sport, here we look at a story there. We feel inspired. That is Bleak Hills Cheune Nsubuga. And that is the Uganda Olympics President William Bleak awards golfer Godfrey Nsubuga. Right, a picture there. Then attention to detail. That is FIBA. That is basketball that Priscilla's just been reading about through in the Daily Monitor Sports there. And also the sports women inside the Daily Monitor. Priscilla, one of the stories that caught my attention was COVID-19 vaccine, government to buy 18 million doses. That is for Uganda.
Well, we wait for the manifestation of that. They can speak of it, but when it actually does happen. But also, please consider that the vaccine are phases. So even if they buy the 1 million in phase 1, they have to buy phase 2 and phase 3. So that's where the challenge could be. But we are waiting to see the manifestation of this one. Up next is traffic updates. We get to look at one of the areas that has a lot of potholes. I tell you, when we get to the traffic updates.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Stay connected to the largest 4G network in Uganda, anytime, anywhere, using the Airtel 4G Pocket Mifi, available at only 123,000 Uganda shillings. This comes with 15 GB free, valid for a month. You can connect up to 10 users at a go and still enjoy a shared yet unmatched internet experience. Dial *175*9# to activate free 15 GB. Visit the nearest Airtel shop to get one today. Airtel, the smartphone network. Airtel is regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Buyogera nyaffe Uganda ku Radio Africa. Tolemwa kumwenya. Olwakamwenyumwenyu akajjudde abanywanyi. Embeera y'obudde yatukolako mukwano. N'obutonde obutubeezaawo. Ne butusobozesa buli mu kubeerawo mu ngeri ye. Kuba ffenna tuli banjawulo. Ne mu ngeri gye tukwasaganyamu emirimu gyaffe. Naye ekitugatta ne tufuuka omuntu omu. Bwe buwoomyo buva mu kyokunywa. Ekyaleeruya jingatte drink. N'aleeruya tamarin drink. Eddekende erikumala ennyonta ate nga wejjanjaba omubiri gwo. Ekyokunywa kino kye kitegeera emibiri gyaffe kuba kya butonde 100 ku 100. Woomerwa ekyokunywa kirimu omubisi gw'enkooge. Aleluya tamarin drink n'aleluya jingatte drink bikolebwa ba Aleluya Reflexology Healthy Solution and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Weefunira ekyokunywa kya Aleluya leero okuva ku maduuka wonna. Bakubire ku noti 393 24 15 66.
Come to Capital Shoppers. We have a variety of items like foods, garments, cosmetics, and all sorts of drinks. Enjoy your shopping experience at affordable prices in our fully stocked branches in the following areas: Ntinda Station Road, opposite Makere Business School along Portbell Road, Duster Street opposite Nakasero Market, and Garden City on Yusuf Lule Road. To all our customers and suppliers, we thank you for your continuous support. Stay safe, wash your hands, sanitize, and wear your mask always.
How do you do? We're here to show some appreciation for the things you do. Send you for today, and this send you for tomorrow. every time and everywhere you go. We love you so, and we enjoy life with you. We are happy, happy, happy to know that we will go with you. That's
Thank you for choosing MTN. Use MTN mobile money, bundles or other services to get Thank You points. The more you use, the more Thank You points you get. We look forward to many more years together. Thank you.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Leaving you with 11 days to Valentine's for the year 2024. I trust that you are getting ready. Well, we are definitely ready for the traffic updates this morning. Looking at Kampala Central Division, we get to have a general look of what the traffic looks like in the CBD Central Division Business Center. So we get to look at Yusuf Roulette this morning. As you can see, Yusuf Roulette does connect from Oasis. It also connects from Ginger Road and is a connecting route if you want to get to the likes of the other side, which would be Mulago. You want to get to Wandegere, you want to get to Kira Road, you can use Yusuf Roulette as an alternative. Now at Yusuf Roulette, of course, we do have the traffic lights there at the golf course, and this morning there is a little bit of jam, but because of the traffic lights, you do understand why you have the jam building up in this area. You get to look at Kololo this morning. It is looking clear, just a few spots that are having jam build-up, and if you notice, it's simply because either they're sharp corners or they're having interconnecting routes there. Then you get to follow the Yusuf Roulette has a red zone here. I told you this morning, we looked at the daily monitor and it gave a report of 220 potholes on a 1 kilometer road. Now, the potholes that I have experienced are, first of all, on the Mulago roundabout. Now, because of the potholes on the Mulago roundabout, it affects how jam actually flows. And so it has to be car by car, and the potholes keep going deeper and deeper every single day. So, dear KCCA, please take note of that and add it to the 220 potholes that have been dug up for refilling. Now, imagine, just as the lizard was thinking, this coast could actually do a whole new road. So why not just redo the entire road instead of doing the potholes? But anyway, that is not in my JD. In my JD this morning, we continue to look at traffic updates. Of course, you do have Kira Road that is having an intersection there, which would be at Acacia City, where you have City Oil in Kamota. And looking at the flow of traffic from this particular cross section, of course, because every car is trying to get to either side of town, you do have that jam building up there. You get to look at Mawanda Road. Mawanda Road this morning does have also some jam picking up, but that is from cars that are coming maybe from the residency here, trying to connect to Kira Road and be able to get into the heart of the city. And of course, on this side, because of the sharp corner, it is car by car. Looking back at Old Kira Road this morning, Kamota does not look to have any jam as we speak. Time check is 5 minutes to the top of the hour, 8 a.m. In Bokoto is where it is interesting. I think because people are trying to use the back route here to be able to access either Kira Road, or they're trying to use it as a back route to get to the Kampala Northern Bypass. And so you get to see that Mukalazi Road is intersecting in this area. You do have the back route here. People are using it as an scapegoat for the traffic that happens on the main road. Now, ironically, when this happens in the back routes, or what people call panyas, it does mean that on the main routes, it's actually clear traffic. And as you can see, Kira Road does continue and shows you that there is clear traffic, and that means that everyone is using these back roads to be able to get out or into the heart of the city. Looking at the area of Kamota does not look bad. We come back to Old Mulago, where you do have some of those routes that are bringing in traffic from Naweru, they're bringing in traffic from Waise, they're bringing in traffic from Kalere, they're bringing in traffic all the way from Gayaza. And so this morning, at that roundabout, you get to see that around the areas of Makerere, Kavule, it's only up until the northern bypass that you will have some little bit of jam, but the rest of the main routes do look passable this morning. We get to move to Makerere, Chikonyi, Kawala. What does it look like? Kasubi, what does it look like? Well, this morning, Kawala Road does not look bad, just a few red zones here, and I think because the commuter taxi stage is there, then you get to look at Makerere, Chikonyi. Apollo is looking clear to pass the intersection of it at Makerere University, and the traffic lights there, you get to see that it's actually very passable. The area of Kasubi and Nabongona. Now, because of the market commuter taxis, there is so many intersecting roads, small roads that come in from the community of Nabongona. It does affect the flow of traffic, and incidentally, they only have just about a few routes that bring them from the community onto the main road, which are in these areas of Kasubi markets that you see. So that is why you have a little bit of a jam build up there. We get to look at elsewhere. What does it look like in terms of traffic? I would like to go to an area which I also believe has a lot of potholes. Ruvaga Division is another area that is having growing potholes. They're growing a bango and things like that. But Sentema Road this morning does have intersections, and at the intersections is where you do have the traffic building up. Albert Cook is where you do have a little bit of traffic. Albert Cook does connect to Wakadiga Road, and that does not look so bad this morning. It's only at the intersections. Of course, this is Wulange and Mengo, and then you get to have the Mengo Hospital here and the rest of the trading center. And so because people are trying to maneuver through the small trading center, that is why we're having some sort of jump building up there. You get to look at Owino Market, Bakuli, Chisenyi. As usual in the morning, the interpretation of it is that everyone is trying to get into the heart of the city, most especially commuter taxis. As you know, most of the people that use the city by daytime actually come outside of the city. So you have taxis that are coming in from Burenga, you have taxis coming in from Kawempe, you have those coming in from Bwegerere, dropping a lot of human traffic into the CBD. Now, the area that does have a lot of potholes, Ring Road. My goodness, I think the 220 maybe were here. Someone once gave us a theory when we were driving on this road and said, perhaps there are people that they hire to actually dig more potholes every single night, because in the morning you find a new pothole and it's a deep pothole. There's no explanation. The rains have not been coming down that hard that they can cause erosion on the soil. So it's, you know, something in question. So for Ruvaga Division and whoever has been elected into office, please look into consideration of actually sorting out these potholes, because they now bring a build-up of traffic jam. As you can see, connecting to Ring Road from Ndeba has become a hurdle. There is always jam, yet it's supposed to be an alternative road. People are supposed to just use it to connect to the other main roads. And you can also see it on this other side. It's simply because of potholes. Not that there's actually jam, not that there are many cars, but because there are many, many potholes. So KCCA, please do consider resort to solutions, and soon solutions, not later solutions, because people's cars are getting out of mechanical condition. So my advice would be to you to avoid these potholes, and I say please avoid them. If you're not sure about the mechanics of your car, or you've just bought your nice fancy car, you have a UBH, UBG, please. Yeah, you have a car like for Felix, you know, those big Fuga cars, it sits down. When it hits a pothole, the bumper stays right there. So the alternative to that is that you might want to use Ruvaga and be able to connect to Ndeba through Ruvaga, come back to Ndeba, then you can connect either Wankurukuku, or you can be able to connect to Nalukorongo, be able to connect to Kaboa, you can be able to connect to Mutundwe. But please use the main road, which is a Ndeba road. Stay away from this if you can't avoid, if you want to avoid the potholes. Traffic is building up, of course, on the main route that is Katwechwe. For obvious reasons, this is a route that brings in people into the heart of the city. You get to look at elsewhere, it does not look so bad. In Tebe Road, as usual, every single morning, you always have the orange to the red zone, simply because there's actually 3 to 4 lines coming from Entebbe joining Chiwe, and that does cause a lot of traffic. Also, please, Katwe Police Station, we are asking, have mercy on the time people spend in this traffic. Because it's conducted by the police traffic, you do have them holding people in these spots for over 30 minutes. Imagine you have an appointment, you have a child. Long time. So please reduce that time and consider that people need to get to their destinations, even regardless of there's so much traffic. But that's all we've had for you for traffic. We continue to have this conversation about education. Education has become a thing. Parents are tired. Teachers are doing other works, and the education system seems to be crumbling unknowingly. Can we have a discussion about it? Yes, we can. On Good Morning Uganda Agenda with Robert Chirawo. It is Good Morning Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Next time, Road to Mama's Kampala 2021.
It's a shame I've never been to Queen Elizabeth.
Queen Sheba joins forces with fellow Ugandan comedian Salvador to explore Queen Elizabeth Park and the unforgettable Kazinga Channel.
Jerusalem. Road to the Mama.
The duo will team up with the Ghetto Kids to host South African global sensation Master KG.
I'm excited to meet you in person.
Here we go.
Oh my gosh! Catch the Road to Mamas, hosted by Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
Double data. Airtel introduces double data. The biggest deal ever on smartphones in Uganda. Buy a smartphone, 3G or 4G, and get 100% data bonus from Airtel. Airtel is giving you 100% bonus data on all weekly and monthly bundles for every new smartphone connected to Airtel for the first 3 months. Dial *175*9# to enjoy double data. Double data, double data. Oh, Airtel, the smartphone network, regulated by Uganda Communications Commission.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite show.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Daddy, surprise! Here is a pizza for you. Happy birthday to you.
Daddy, you look not impressed. My daughter, this is not meaningful to me. Hallelujah Natural Drinks is my ideal gift today.
Hallelujah Day. Hallelujah Ginger Tea Drink and Hallelujah Tamarind Drinks are the most perfect, nutritious and healthy products that help everyone to boost their immune system to get complete relief of most sicknesses like joint pains, cough, diabetes, blood pressure, easy digestion, and many more. And certified by UNBS. For orders, find us at Bifro House on Sir Apolokagwa Road, opposite MBI. Hallelujah Natural Drinks, perfect for your health. Hallelujah Day.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Away from the traffic, welcome now to Good Morning Uganda Agenda. This is where we get to look at issues of national concern and usually have a guest in studios. Today we are going to be discussing the education sector, to be more specific, the gradual reopening of education institutions. As we remember, due to COVID-19, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda came out, and it was on the 18th of March 2020, that was last year, when among the measures to curb the spread of COVID-19 was to stop the 15 million school-going learners in the country from attending school because there was so much of congestion all education institutions. However, as time moved on the 15th of October, finally candidates were allowed to go back to school. And this has had a couple of challenges. And of late, we saw that now, yesterday, a document what transpired in cabinet, the official government spokesperson, Ofono Opondo, at the media center communicated that school will resume for semi-candidates, that is P6, Senior 5, and also Senior 3s. With us in studios, we have, that is the National Secretary, Federation of Non-State Education Institutions. Now, this is a body that brings together people that own education institutions that are not government. We must also recall that in Uganda, we have government-owned or aided education institutions and public or private. However, the private-owned education institutions outnumber government-owned. And when times such a time, government would give assistance, or usually gives assistance. For example, the teachers in government schools still are being paid. What happens to the private sector? What does this mean, the gradual opening to the private sector? And this is what we are going to be discussing with Patrick Kaboyo. Kaboyo.
Yes.
So most welcome to the studios.
Thany you, Mr. Chirabo, and Happy New Year.
I love your blazer.
Thank you.
How has Fenei been? I last heard you guys were going in an election. That was at Mengo Primary School.
No, Mengo Senior School. Yes, Fenei is okay. We last had our annual General Assembly at Mengo Senior School on the 14th of November last year. We were moving to have elections, but the delegates gave us a 4-month mandate, renewing our time for a short term to ensure that we have put some issues right. And soon, before the second quarter of this financial year comes in, we shall be having another delegates conference to renew the offices, which is a good practice for governance and corporate governance. Yes.
So you're having more 4 months in office before elections?
Before elections, because we want to make sure that the structures are very well laid out.
Okay.
Yes.
Patrick, we know you people, members of this organization, when we talk about non-state education institutions, this is a body that brings together, for our viewer, owners, people that own schools. Patrick is a teacher as well, but also a member and owns a school. Patrick, when we talk about, first, even before we go to the gradual reopening, how has COVID-19 affected you, owners of education institutions?
First of all, as you said, this is the sector where I have been all my life. And I should say that COVID has brought the good and the bad.
Oh, happy to hear that is the good.
Yes, it has brought the good that all those men and women who thought were so comfortable and so hard to associate with came to learn that they needed to belong to groups that can help them.
Okay.
A good example is that we started struggling with formations of coming together with this federation 6 years ago, but you realize that since COVID came in, 6 months back, there are many associations that have come up, and to us that is a positive, that COVID has reawakened them. There are those who had not diversified in terms of investment, that they were looking at one Spain or one sector, but now they know that if I have to invest my resources in diverse sectors, I can sustain a school. Thirdly, most schools, including those public, had not valued the importance of teachers. They thought that teachers in a certain school were referred to like airtime. You can buy scratch when we used to see scratch those cards. and replace. But now, it's true that learning must take place where there is a teacher, not a computer, but a teacher. That is a positive. Another positive is that you realize all our children who are the age of 3 to 5, mostly in urban centers and this city in particular, have been going to school dozing in buses, in taxis, sleeping literally, reaching to school when they're exhausted and tired. But this 11 months, to me, as an educator and social worker, I know that these young people have now been redirected with their growth and development to at least rest. Now they have rested, they have slept, they are not bothered by being woken up at 4, being on the road with all those disturbances. So that's a positive. But the other, last one, is that government has also learned that it cannot do it alone or do it by itself. It has to partner, it has to work with us, it has to engage us to share ideas and to move this far where we are at. Yes, those are the positives, and of course I had to start with the positive. But on the negative is that we continuously see the teachers in private schools at all levels not receiving any salary, even when their counterparts in government are receiving their salary every month. We thought that cabinet was to be kind enough and consider that stimulus resourcing for the teachers first and the directors. Yes, the discussions might be there on table, but it's taking too long. You cannot discuss.
There was a pledge by His Excellency.
Yes, you pledged 22 billion shillings.
Yes, 22 billion.
Yes, if you pledged in June and we are now in February, then that will be matagenyana, meaning that there should be a protracted process to fast track and expedite the giving of that money. If we don't want to give all of it, we could first throw in something to at least say, at least this money maybe has been given to every teacher who rents. We know these guys have no houses, they rent. Maybe you'd say because we have collected all their telephone numbers, we know them, they are registered, they are approved. Can we first give them a 3 months rent so that they pay their landlords as we work on the structures? But that said, we also, as FENEI, did a study on finding out our members and non-members, how far they are faring in terms of 3 aspects. 1, wage bill and non-wage. 2, teachers specifically who have loans and the institutions that have loans. That again comes into wage. But 3, preparation for opening of schools, where you have to buy sanitizers, renovate, fumigate, and everything. We looked at over 1,600 institutions that we have on record, and when we computed the amount they need, it came to about 139 billion shillings. And if you multiply that times 2, because we didn't cover the whole country, we are looking at a region within 400 billion shillings. And this was communicated to authorities. My thinking and the thinking of our colleagues was that in this cabinet presentation there could be a pronouncement that comes to stimulate that process. But we have seen most of the pronouncements are geared towards having the vaccine and other competing priorities. But that said, it will not stop us from asking and pushing for more. And I think we also deserve to have all the classes open.
Let's look at the gradual reopening, first looking at only the candidate classes. As the private institutions, which are majority of education institutions in Uganda, for only the candidates, what are some of the challenges? Because this has been the pilot project on which government the results has depended on to have the semi-candidates now get back to school.
You see, Mr. Shirabo and viewers, in an education setting, we have constants and non-constants. However much you receive one class or two classes, you will still pay the same bills in terms of water, in terms of electricity, because we will not say that because I have few candidates, I will put few lights in those classes and leave others. The entire school has to be lit. The workforce in terms of cleaning. There is also a constant of personnel. You are not going to say, I will invite only, okay, if it is P7, I will invite 4 teachers for mathematics, SST, science, and the other. No. You will have a workforce that prepares these people, including the medical, in the accounts, in the kitchen, in the front office, in the estates, and this cuts across including secondary school. So you'll find that much as the students return, but every director of a school that is private is making losses. So the compensation for a breather was that yes, resumption is inevitable because we cannot keep learners in a wrong forum, which are homes. We ask for total return, then we work on the compliance and how we can meet the SOPs. But I also want to tell you that records have it, including from the Ministry of Health and from the Directorate for Education Standards, that schools have complied very well in terms of managing SOPs.
You've complied very well, Patrick, with minimal numbers. Those are candidate classes, of which even some schools had to close that could not sustain only one class running. So maybe there you've been able to comply because of minimal numbers. But there is a point we want to look at. With these gradual reopenings, are they a breather to the private institutions? Because once, first and foremost, you didn't have any business in schools. Now schools were opened, at least for candidates. Now we know that semi-candidates are joining. Have they in any way been a breather to the teachers, to the owners of these schools?
A breather is two-way. It's both social in terms of how these learners are going to be prepared and made better citizens of this country. Then the other breather is on how the institutions run. But I want to tell you
that look at the financial element.
The financial element, which I talked on earlier on, that there is no school that is having it as a rosy experience. Every director is struggling. And most schools might not tell you how they are struggling. Commercial banks, as we speak, at the verge of taking people's schools. Some have even been taken on. And based on that, when a bank manager knows that now 3 classes or 4 classes are returning, of course, even if a director does not collect all the resources, all the tuition, part of it will be collected, and a loan that a director has will be sorted small time. But that said, we cannot say that we are not appreciative. We have appreciated this pronouncement that there is gradual reopening. But the very critical request we make is that, can we know the date? Can we know the definite date so that, one, parents are able to look for money and save the little they have and don't invest it in any other thing that is not education. 2, that the anxiety that rests within the minds of directors, the suppliers, the banks is sorted. Because if a school communicates, if government communicates the right dates, it will give schools ample time to borrow. And those will be the best fruits, or the hanging fruits, the low fruits that every stakeholder in the school can use to improve education. But also we need to have a clear calendar drawn and communicated. We would like to be informed, as communication is two-way. We shouldn't be clamoring or struggling to get feedback from government. If the technical people have done their work, of course when cabinet communicates, it has got what it's communicating from the technical teams that have done their work. If the technical teams have done their work in real time, can we also have cabinet communicate to us in real time, so that we plan and we move together? Failure to do that, then you'll find people misinforming the public, people going to social media creating their own dates. Can you imagine that from now to Sunday, if the Minister of Education and Sports does not come up with definite dates, people are going to create their own dates.
Well, that we expect His Excellency, I think that is tomorrow, Thursday, he will be addressing the nation, and I think that could be one of the issues he speaks about. But Patrick, let's also look at the capacity of schools now to handle another class. When we saw finalists and candidates report back to school, there are some schools that never reopened because they could not manage operating with one class. Now we assume if it was primary, you're going to be having P7, and in addition to that, you have P6. You've told us that you may not be operating under profits. What is the capacity of schools to have these additional classes?
For every school to be called a school, there are standards. The basic requirements and minimum standards of the Ministry of Education give the school mandate to open. And once you open, it means that you have more than 3 classrooms. But schools are open differently. There are those purely that are ECD, early child development or nursery schools.
Those are not going to be opening for now?
Those are not going to open for now. Is a directive, and we cannot do much on that. But those operating in that sector should do much advocacy. Then the primary school, which has 7 classrooms or so, including the main hall, so are O-level and A-level. This means, therefore, that every school worth the name has capacity to absorb the numbers that are returning.
Look at this, Patrick. Here now you have more standard operating procedures supposed to be in place. The spaces required may not be the usual space you need. The staffing required may also increase because of monitoring, implementation of these standard operating procedures. The finances, therefore, the financial implication, schools may be operating with more additional finances compared to what they were using during normal operation.
Robert, on space, you know, when we go to school, even the students we have in schools, we don't teach them about being creative or to think critically, which they call thinking outside the box. If you have a school, I understand that every week there is space where you stand to address learners, which is a school assembly point. Just improvise and have tents, erect them in that space, so that you create other classrooms to ensure that the social distance is addressed. If you have a main hall, don't lock it because parents have not come for a meeting. Turn that into a classroom. If you have trees in your compound, there are those who don't have, make those spaces, sheds, have learning processes take place there, because a lesson takes 40 minutes or 80 minutes. And if that is done, chapels, I am not sure about the mosques, that if a mosque can be turned into a classroom, but all worship centers, if they are doing the right thing, then learners should be there. So for us as operators in schools, we have no problem with the
space. Then
dormitories can be used, but of course with beds, they might not facilitate learning. But in terms of accommodation, it's not true that all schools are boarding.
But the ministry guidelines, Patrick,
yes.
They came out clear. You're either day or you're boarding. You do not have this mix. So that means there are boarding schools that, or day schools maybe that could have been turned into boarding.
I want to tell you that I'm privy to information that all schools that opened did well via compliance and responding to SOPs. And as I started with the positive vibes of the COVID, we are also certain that directors and all stakeholders are going to strive to improve and not decline. So I'm giving hope to authorities and to all that are listening to us that our curve is growing into improving compliance to SOPs and not to have any decline. And also we promise to do our own self-monitoring, and you should know that there is a private schools COVID committee which did some work on finding out how schools are responding to SOPs, and these reports are given to the Ministry of Education and Sports. Some of them could be listening to us. They know that they have done this, and it's incumbent upon us to continue with that process.
Economically, how we've had schools struggling financially. I know, yes, much as your body is agitating and craving for total reopening of schools, but we've had schools that have shut down. We've had schools that have not been able to reopen because of finances. We've had schools that even crumbling with water bills, electricity bills. So financially, we could be speaking for schools in Kampala, but we have schools up country, have schools, and they should also be benefiting at least.
You see, Mr. Chirabo and viewers, COVID should be able to push us to a new thinking, not the business as usual of delivery of education. We should be thinking of models that work. What will happen if a worse COVID situation hits us worse than this? This means, therefore, a school that is financially stressed should be forming clusters, community clusters. We know that for us in the private sector, if your school is performing so well, I will not tell you, you will not tell me the magic you are using or how you do it. Instead, you will see me as a competitor, as a traitor, as a saboteur. But now COVID exposes us that those things are now not fashionable. We have to work together. If I do not have resources to run my school and you are my neighboring school, let me give you an example. If there is any school around Mengo, it should be able to run to the next school near Mengo to borrow. Even if you have stocks of cereals and maize in your stores because they have not been consumed, and I know I'm going to purchase mine and I have the invoices and the orders, it does no harm for me to reach out to you as my colleague to say, can I have some 5 sacks of posho and 2 sacks of beans? My students need this, so that when I get, I give you back. That's what we need to do. Also, in terms of sharing ideas, we need to train directors on how to manage institutions in a frugal way. Most times when you call for these directors for any training, you don't see them. Or those you see are those that take no decision at all. But representatives delegated without power. And the decisions that these directors who don't show up make in institutions are the ones that cause institutional stress, but also personal stress. Meaning that going forward, we have to invest so much as a federation in capacity building and training, retooling of all directors about the new normal of how schools should run. And not to have it to yourself, because you have your school, you know how you have survived in COVID, it is only for you. Open up and empower peers and colleagues so that they also manage to survive. Because if we are many, then the economy will grow. If many schools are forced to close, the economy will dwindle. and that has a very negative effect on the human capital development of this country.
Patrick, I know to parents listening and watching this show, the other issue that they now think of is school fees.
Yes.
And now that you have you private owners of private schools, how are you going to be handling this? Because we've had many students have not even been able to report back because of sometimes this issue. As educators, do you sympathize with parents?
I want to shock you that government schools find it so hard to allow parents to have students with partial payment. They always demand for 100% payment to a larger extent. However, there are those which can listen. So my request is to have every institution that is going to reopen to borrow a leaf from private schools operators who understand the business model, who understand the customer care tenets, who understand on survival of institutions that shall we allow our students to pay in installments. In private schools, this is the norm. It has been happening. There is no school private, apart from one I know along a certain road I might not mention, that asks parents to pay 100%. Because we are all in the same economy, we have been hit by COVID, we all have empty pockets. This show should be watched, and please invite us quite often, because these are serious issues that that should be communicated to parents. Even the president, if he's listening. I looked at
as you went up, Patrick.
As I went up, I looked at the priorities that decisions were taken on being discussed in cabinet. I never saw any component on the psychosocial support for teachers and learners. Yes, these learners are returning 11 months they have been in a wrong place. How are we going to handle them psychologically in terms of them being cancelled, being supported, being reviewed? And I thought the Minister of Gender ought to have brought this in that cabinet discussion. But that said, schools now have to turn into counseling centers to talk to these parents. If a parent comes and has no money, the most important thing is that, has this child brought back the child? If the child has been brought back to school, then work on the processes for payment in installments and emphasize communication both vertically and horizontally. And it is the same thing we're asking government, that please communicate the dates, actual dates for reopening, to enable us plan, because all of us are parents. We don't have this money, we want to look for it. And if the dates are given, then we shall be so ready to have the learning take place.
Thank you, Patrick Kaboyo, who is the National Secretary for Federation of Non-State Education Institutions, that brings together owners of schools, that is private schools. Well, they are ready, according to them. All they need are the debts for them to better plan, and for parents, the installments will be a priority this time round. Remember, semi-candidates will soon be reporting back to school, a date way to be communicated. For the pre-primary, still give it more time. I'll leave you with Ruben Mpima Kasera Chibirango to take you through the sports updates. Have a lovely day. Keep it on UBC TV, and remember, a peaceful environment is what we should all advocate for and push for. God bless you.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Double data. Airtel introduces Double Data, the biggest deal ever on smartphones in Uganda. Buy a smartphone, 3G or 4G, and get